I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul.
So crazy morning. I had to run to Billy's school to drop off his lunch money because he forgot it. And then I was going to Roscoe's to drop off a memory stick. Roscoe's father-in-law passed away at the end of last week, and his wife needed to put together a slideshow of a whole bunch of pictures. So I went there last night and got all the pictures she had on a memory stick, and then I put it in my Adobe Premiere program and turned it into a slideshow. But anyway, so I texted him and said, when I gotta drop off Billy's lunch money and then I'll be there. And so I was almost to the school, and my dashboard started flashing saying battery not charging, and my amp gauge was almost down to 9 amps, and I was like, oh shit. So I was like, I didn't want to stop at the school and take a chance of the truck shutting off and then not starting back up. So I text Roscoe and I go, I'm coming straight to your house first. I'm coming in hot. I got a problem. And he didn't answer. So I get like 3 streets away from his house. I'm going down one street, and these buses are coming at me. I see their lights coming on. I'm like, oh man, don't stop, don't stop. And so they didn't turn to red yet. They were just flashing yellow, and they waved me on. So I went right past them, and I turned onto the next street. Just as I turned onto the next street, my lights started flashing, ABS malfunction, brake system malfunction. And I'm like, oh man, I'm losing all voltage now. And so I'm cruising down the street. I'm on his street. I'm about 1.5 miles from his house, and I'm all of a sudden, all my gauges, my speedometer, my RPM gauge, my oil pressure gauge, fuel gauge, everything just drops right off. The heat was on number 3. I heard the fan kick off. The radio said no signal for my satellite radio. That kicked off. And I'm like, great, here we go. So I get to the stop sign that's just before you cross over this main street, and then his house is just up a little bit. And I get there, and I'm rolling up to it, and I'm looking, there's nothing coming. I went right through that intersection. As soon as I pull into his driveway, the truck shuts right off. I lose power steering, and I'm like turning the truck into the driveway, and I rolled right up to his garage, and it shut off. And I called him, and he was just waking up. So it had, I mean, this truck's got, what am I at? I'm at 137,000 miles on this truck, and it was the original Delphi alternator, 105 amp. So I called the parts store, and they said they had 160 amp in stock, and I said, all right, you know, I might as well go bigger anyway. I plow with this truck. I got a lot of lights on this truck. So Ryan and I take the alternator off because there's like a $40 core, and we run up there. They had a 160 amp, but it wasn't the right one. The plug in the back was different. It was different size. So they had 145 amp in stock. So we grabbed that, took it back, threw it on real quick, and now the truck's good to go. So then I just ran over and took Billy his lunch money. And but now I got to go home, and we're going to work on the Walker B today. So I just wanted to tell you guys that story first, how my morning's been so far. But we're headed home now, and we're going to work on that Walker B and get some things knocked out on that thing. Mailman dropped off some packages. I think this is Billy's, to be honest with you. Not really sure. Yep, this is Billy's. Take care of that. New thing of platinum creatine. This is for me and Billy. This is Billy's. Mass Tech weight gainer, 7-pound container, because Billy drinks like 2 to 3 protein shakes a day with a raw egg in it and peanut butter, and he eats like a horse, but he's got that teenage super high metabolism, so he never puts on any weight. And since he works out so freaking much, he's in the gym every day, 5 days a week, he works out like crazy, and he eats like a freaking horse. He's putting in all the hard work, so he might as well get the max benefits out of it that he can. So I said, instead of protein shakes, dude, you need weight gainer. Because he's putting on muscle like there's no tomorrow. Like, he looks like a scrawny little runt, but he is freaking solid. And he punched me the other day in the chest, and I thought he about knocked the wind out of me. I was going to kick the crap out of him. But anyway, he needs to put on some mass, some weight, so he's not a skinny little runt. So, weight gainer for Billy. Creatine for both of us. If you guys don't know what creatine does, I've heard people say to me before, you take creatine, that's cheating like steroids. First of all, we've been over steroids, okay? And I'm not taking them, and I'm sure as hell ain't letting Billy take them. But first off, steroids ain't cheating. You have to eat twice as much, work out twice as hard, lift twice as heavy for steroids to even work. So, in my mind, they're not cheating, for one thing. But the reason I don't take them is, one, the health situation, the negative sides, the side effects of it, and two, because if you take steroids and you stop working out, say you stop for like a month or two, you know, take a break from the gym like we all do, you'll lose 90% of everything that you put on. And if you work out like him and I do now, and we miss a month or two here or there, like we missed a month after GIE, you know, you shrink down a little bit because you lose that initial pump, but you really don't lose anything. You don't lose any of your mass. So those are some of the reasons why we don't take it. But anyway, creatine, all it does is it's like a suction type is the best way I can explain it. It pulls water from your body to your muscles to keep your muscles oversaturated with water, to keep you from cramping up all the time when you work out and you're that active. So that's why we take creatine. So I told you guys before we had to get a bunch of parts for Billy's mower. I got 2 new spark plugs. I pulled one of them out of it and it was black. It was nasty as shit. So we definitely got to change those out. Got a new fuel filter for it, and we got a new oil filter. I bought the Kohler oil filter this time. Now, as you guys know, in the past, I've always used either Napa oil filters or I use Kawasaki oil filters on everything. And for a while, I was buying a bunch of like just generic, a case of them, and I never had a problem with on any of the mowers. But for some reason, let me show you this. You see all that built up oil in there that the grass and everything stuck to? For some reason, there's the oil filter. Oil was changed at 250 hours. But for some reason, every time I use one of those generic oil filters that I've never had an issue with on any other machine, or if I use a Kawasaki oil filter, the oil filter keeps leaking on here, and I keep getting all that oil buildup around there, the grass and everything sticking to. So I'm going to go back to the stock Kohler filters, what came on this thing when I bought it, and hopefully that solves that problem. Now here's the issue with running power chute. Here's the whole cable and plug that I have for the power chute that I have routed along the deck, and the plug for the end. But I had it zip tied along the deck so it doesn't get pinched, and I had to cut all the zip ties off so I could pull the deck off. Because underneath here, right there is one, and if I get you some light, right there's the other. These are little plastic covers that go on here, and right behind each one of those is a hydro filter. There's 2 of them on here. So to get these off, it's just much easier to pull the deck off. So I got the deck pulled off here, and I'm going to take these caps off, and then I can unscrew these filters, put a pan under, and get these filters changed out. You can see just little hydro gear commercial filters that are on them. And that's all that's behind it. And then, you know, there's this little cover here, and it has 3 little bolts that hold them in, and there's one on each side. So here's the other one right here. So I'm gonna unscrew these off, and so that we can get the other ones on. There is right there, there's a plug that takes an Allen key that goes in there. There's one there, and there's one on the side of this hydro pump or hydro motor too. So that's how you drain them. You unscrew those. So once I get the filters off, then I take these out here and I drain them down. The reason I do it that way is because then it allows air to get behind the fluid once you take this filter off, and it helps it to flow out better. Okay, all that fluid is draining. I have the plugs out of both sides there, and what's left in the bottom of them is draining out. the filter's off. I put a new filter on that side already, and now I'm putting one. I will put the other one over on this side. Now, one thing I want to tell you guys, and this has come up a lot. I've seen it on a lot of forums online. I've seen it on a lot of YouTube videos. And people say, you know, it's got to be the manufacturer one. It's got to be OEM. And, you know, I understand why you put OEM. There's nothing wrong with putting OEM anything on your machines. But for those of you that are wondering, and people that don't know, the important thing with hydro filters is it has to be the same micron. They're usually 10 micron or 25 micron. And the reason why that's important is because the hydro units are designed for a certain amount of flow and a certain amount of pressure. And if you put the wrong size micron on, that changes the pressure and the amount of fluid that goes through them. So you need to have that correct. So as long as the micron is correct, whether it's 10 or 25 or whatever it may be, as long as that's correct and the size of the threads where it screws on, you get a nice tight seal, you can use aftermarket. Doesn't have to be OEM. If you want to, go ahead. I'm not telling you not to use OEM, but I'm just telling you, for those of you that have been wondering, that's the rule of thumb. Now, refilling hydros on almost every mower is a painstaking experience. It drains down through so slow, but on most of them, there's a little trick to it to make it a little bit faster, make it go easier. Fill through the reservoir. Now on my Walker MT, right up top, there's a plug, and you take that plug out and you fill through there until it gets to the point where it's coming out of that cap. Then you screw the cap back in, and you start filling through the reservoir until it fills right up to the cold mark, full cold. There's a line there. You don't want to put too much. A lot of people fill these like halfway thinking you need that much. You don't. Only needs to go to the full cold mark because it needs room for expansion. So on these ones here, they don't have the plug up top, but they do have the plug right there. So what I do is I unscrew these plugs and I still fill through here. I'll fill this thing all the way up, and I'll unscrew both these plugs so that they'll let air out and it allows it to fill faster. So I will take both these plugs out, like I said, start to fill through here till it starts to come out both those plugs, and then I will put the plugs back in and I will continue to fill through here only a little bit at a time until it levels out right there and don't go down anymore. Now, I've told you guys before, a lot of different manuals call for 1550 and a lot of them call for 2050. It really doesn't matter. My recommendation to you is use Mobile One and use full synthetic, but you do what you got to do. I've always used 1550 or 2050. It really doesn't matter. I just don't mix them. So if they're running a little bit low, I won't top it off with something other than what I already put in there. And that's why you can see on here 2050. The last time I flushed these out, that's what I put in here was 2050. So that's what I'm putting in there right now. And like I said, I write it on them. That way, if I ever have to top them off, I have a leak on one of my machines or anything like that, and I got to add a little bit to top it off until I can fix the leak, I know what I've already had in there. I know what's currently in there. So like I said, run what you want, but this one here, last time I did these hydros on it, changed the filters, I put 2050, so I'm putting the same thing back in them now. And just in case some of you might ask, another reason why I pull these plugs out on the top is one, like I said, like I got that topped right off and that'll go down slow. It still goes down slow, but it'll go down faster having those plugs out. So I take the plugs out for two reasons. One, so that it'll drain down in there faster, and once it gets to that point, I know they're full up to this point, and then I just got to fill it the rest of the way through the hose up to the reservoir. But the other reason I do is because as it's filling, it pushes the air out. So I know I'm getting all the air out of my units before the thing becomes full. So if you're filling it through there and you don't pull these plugs out, all that air has to come up through the line, and these are real small. They're only 1/4 inch lines. They got to come up through the line and then burp out of here, and you'll get air bubbles coming up out of there. And that's why it takes so slow, because it has to bypass the fluid that's trying to go down through. So, and then you never know if you get all the air out of here. You hope you do, but it's just easier and more guaranteed doing it this way. You know it's pushing all the air out. So like I said, the hole's big enough. I mean, there's the plug right there. By the time the fluid gets up to this level, it has pushed all the air out of this entire big unit all the way up to this point. So like I told you, this takes a long time to drain through. I currently just put the 3rd quart in, and it's going to take more. So you have 2 choices. Sit here and stare at this and wait for it, which will take forever, or go to Chipotle and get a big fat burrito and eat this while you wait for it. So this is just about done, and that's pretty much all there is to it. It's an easy process. It's not very cheap. These quarts of the Mobile 120/50 that I use are about $11 a quart, depending on where you get them. If you buy them at Walmart, you can probably get them a little bit cheaper. I think I bought it there before. I got these ones at Napa, and well, a couple more I had too here, and it takes, I think, almost 4 quarts. But it, nope, I don't know anybody in Brooklyn. But yeah, it's, so in the filters, I've seen them go anywhere from $10 up to like $22 a filter. So again, it depends on where you get them. But it's not a cheap thing to do, but you know, these hydros on here, I've seen them go from $500 on certain mowers all the way up to $1,000, $1,200 for one, and there's 2 of them obviously. So do you spend the money on the fluid and the filter and just bite the bullet, or do you take a chance and burn one of those up? So you gotta do what you gotta do. I know it's only Monday, but be on the lookout. Saturday, I believe it's 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, so for me it'll be 7 p.m. I'll be doing a live interview with Ben from Acme. So don't forget about that. I'd love to have as many people as I can chime in on there and watch that interview from the few he's done so far. Looks pretty cool, and it looks like it's a good time. So definitely check that out in there where you can ask questions. I can't see the questions, he can, but he kind of forwards them over to me. He picks which ones and then asks them to me, but it'll be a good time either way. So don't forget about that. And that's about it for today. Tomorrow I am going to get these blades off this deck. I'm going to get them sharpened back to a factory edge, get them balanced out. I'm going to change the oil. I already did the plugs today. I'll show you this. If you can see, that is one of the plugs I took out. They both pretty much look the same, so they were due. It was time. And so tomorrow will be the oil change, getting the blades off here, sharpened, rebalanced, and I got the whole thing greased already today, the entire deck, everything greased, the whole machine greased. While I've been waiting for this fluid to fill up. But that's about it. So guys, you don't have to do it our way, and you don't have to use any of the products that we use. This is just what we do and how we do it. And I will see you guys tomorrow.